Welcome to the Wealth Juice Podcast, where we discuss all things real estate, personal finance, investing, entrepreneurship, and the many ways to achieve financial independence. We interview accomplished investors and entrepreneurs with the goal that their stories inspire you to take control of your financial future. Here to get your creative juices flowing while also documenting their own personal investing journeys are your hosts, Corey Jacobson and Ryan Bevilacqua.
Welcome back to the Wealth Juice Podcast. As always, it's your boys, Ryan and Corey, here with another episode. Today, we had one of our good friends in the financial independence community, Tess Waresmith, on the podcast. She is a financial educator who recently left her W-2 job and is a full-time financial coach. And Tess is amazing. We've done a deal together in real estate. She's been a part of our community for years. We said this a couple times throughout the episode. We thought we already had her grace us with her presence on an episode previously, but this is the first time we've interviewed her, but we've had a number of conversations with her. She's helped us with our business. We've helped her with hers, and she's awesome. Girl from the Northeast, and is very, very good about making investing approachable and makes anyone feel like they can do it.
Yeah, I'm reading her tagline here: finance bro free investing education for millennial women. And we found out that we are not finance bros. So it's good to hear that we were not in that category. We asked her specifically, and I say it as a joke, because like I don't feel like we are, but like there is this thing, like, and basically what she talked about is like it's like this gatekeeping, like making investing confusing. And that's what she views finance bros are. Although we are bros that talk about finance, we're not finance bros. So that's good. So Tess is a real estate investor. She has a portfolio in stocks. She is 36 and has a 7-figure net worth. So she's a millionaire, and she left her job, her W-2 job. She was a collegiate diver. And she was learning about money, got a W-2 job, and then was able to leave that job. And she does her coaching business full time. And it was an inspiration to us because Ryan and I have launched our coaching business and we're getting it off the ground. It's different than hers. And I think that she just brings so much value. And you mentioned the approach, like have investing be approachable, like have it be something that you're able to talk about with people and not make it like, oh, that's for somebody else. And Tess just has a wealth of knowledge about it.
Yes. And I know we've talked about this a lot recently, but the power of getting your first investment property is what truly set Tess on this path. And that's why we're coaching about it. And that's why our goal is to help as many people as possible get their first investment property, right? Tess was able to leave her W-2 job because she's house hacking and had a portfolio of 5 properties. And she had one in Tampa she bought for 80 grand and it went all the way up to 350 grand. She didn't, she hasn't really touched that property. It's just part of her net worth, but it's just a testament to show like she really said, well, actually, now that I look back on it, real estate's the reason I've actually been able to do all this. So I just wanted to bring it full circle there because we preach this all the time, and it's just another real life case study of how to do it and someone that it's benefited from. And it's someone just like us who had to self-educate on financial independence, on finance, on education, on real estate, all these things. We had to go study it ourselves and put it into action. And she's, like Corey said, 36, millionaire, portfolio of 5 properties, and just has her own business and has her own time freedom to do what she wants when she wants. And it's amazing.
The power of networking too, man. I mean, like you mentioned in this intro, like we've done deals together with Tess, like we've met her and we've done real estate transactions together. And I think it's like, that's why getting in the game, getting around people that are doing the same thing, you can only grow from there. And it starts with getting your first. And Tess talks about that, like you said, about how impactful that was for her. I think we bring her in. Good friend. Great episode. Let's get it going.
Let's do it.
It's time to flip the script on how you invest in real estate. Backflip is one company out there that is actually changing the game. Backflip is an all-in-one platform that gives you the insights, capital, and community to find and fund your fix and flip real estate deals. The app is completely free. And actually, the part Ryan and I love the most is you can pull comps, estimate profits for multiple exit strategies in seconds, and apply for a personalized loan all in one place. We're talking a 96% loan to cost ratio and no upfront fees. Check it out for yourself. Download the Backflip app today.
Having purchased investment properties as well as primary residences, we know how daunting it can be to find a reliable lender to secure financing for real estate in the market today. with the up and down of the market, high interest rates, and the complexity of the process, honestly, it can feel like a lot. So to help out our community, we decided to bring on probably the most important person or one of the most important members of our personal real estate investing team onto the show to help out our listeners. Our mortgage lender, Travis David of CMG Home Loans, has agreed to educate our community and assist anyone looking for real estate financing. Whether you're a real estate investor looking to fund your next project or simply looking to purchase a primary residence, Travis will be able to help you and point you in the right direction. So he provides each of his clients with a tailored roadmap designed to guide them through purchasing their first investment property and strategically scale their portfolios over time. So if you're looking to either purchase your first residence or maybe second residence, but a primary residence, or invest in real estate, Travis is your guy. Visit our website at www.juice-enterprises.com/need-funding to book a call with Travis to explore all the loan packages that him and his team currently have available. He'll also help assess your current situation and will work with you to map out a plan for the future. So just remember this, we can all win. This is an example we really wanted to help out our community and something we find people are lacking in a daunting process. So if you are looking for real estate financing, we have your back. Make sure to visit our website and Travis will take care of you. Quick public service announcement for all of our listeners. First off, we want to thank you all for tuning into the show, not only this week, but we've seen you coming back episode after episode. And one thing we'd really like your assistance on, if possible, you know that our content's free and it takes a lot to pump this out every week. We're really looking to enhance our overall reviews on the show. That can be on Spotify, but mainly we are looking for Apple Podcasts. If you could please leave us a 5-star review, that will go so long and so far for us. Really, when people are looking to get on shows, they look to see how many 5-star reviews that show has and the number of reviews. So if you haven't left one, please just click on our show. You can scroll down to reviews and then leave the 5-star. Even if you can write a little blurb about us, like what maybe has helped motivate you or anything that is relatable to your life, that would go such a long way for us. And then in turn, it allows us to get high quality guests for future episodes. So if there's been a motivating episode that you can really think back to and that has really helped you in your life, please leave a review because we'll be able to get someone like that on the show in the future to help someone else out. So that would be very much appreciated. And we look forward to continuing more episodes for you. Tess, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. Corey and I are so excited to have you on the show. Funny enough, we thought we had an episode with you years ago, and we did not. You've been one of our great friends in the wealth building, financial independence community on Instagram. In real life, we've done some real estate together. So I just say officially welcome, but you've been in the family for a while. We're just excited to bring your story to our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. It does feel like it's been a long time coming. Like we've been Instagram friends for years. So thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're thrilled. This is going to be a fun one. So take us through your journey. I guess we'll set the stage here where you're a financial educator by day and you've grown to this stage of your life. I want to take us back maybe pre-financial independence and being an educator and kind of what you did starting out, and then take us to today and where you're at now.
Sure. So my financial story actually starts when I graduated from university, and I was super lucky to get a full athletic scholarship. And so I always say that because honestly, I think that's really important from like a privilege perspective. Like I really did start from zero. Which I know that so many people listening probably have, different kinds of debt and loans. So I was lucky in that from that perspective. But my story starts because I grew up really afraid of not having enough money. And I graduated into a recession into 2009, got rejected from pretty much every job I applied to. And so I ended up with this wild job as an aerial acrobat and high diver on cruise ships. So that was my first job out of college. And so that job ended up being really great from a finance perspective because I lived on the ship. So board was free, food was free. So I ended up being able to save a lot of money and then decided, okay, I want to start investing it. And I knew enough to know that I wanted to invest, but I wasn't sure exactly how. And then that's kind of the beginning of my financial journey. And then I made a ton of mistakes in real estate investing, which we can talk about. I made mistakes in stock market investing, but thankfully I learned from all of them. And so over the last, 13 years or so, I've been able to build my net worth, and now I'm financially independent. But it was definitely a journey, and I definitely made thousands and thousands of dollars of mistakes starting out. And then after I had that experience on cruise ships, I held regular jobs. I had a W-2 job. I worked in marketing for a long time and then recently left. And now I'm an investing educator and I absolutely love what I do. And now I get to help regular people learn how to invest and avoid all the very expensive mistakes that I made.
Wow. So forgive me if you just mentioned this, but you mentioned, I think, aerial acrobat or high diver on. So
Yeah.
your athletic scholarship, were you a gymnast or what was
I
it
was
for?
a diver, like
You
a
were a diver.
springboard diver. Yeah.
Wow. Cool. So basically people that are watching the Olympics this week, is that an Olympic?
Yes.
I guess
Yeah.
can you get a
So
medal in
some
that?
of the generation now that's in the Olympics is a little bit younger than me, but a girl I used to train with, her little sister is in the Olympics right now. It's a very small community. There's not a lot of divers, so we all know each other. But yeah, it was a great sport. It gave me a lot of opportunity and really set me up for financial success, because if I hadn't gotten rejected from all those jobs and ended up on cruise ships, it would have been harder for me to save money. So that ended up being a very weird, wonderful way to save money in my early 20s.
Yeah, the sports are amazing. So it's cool that you're able to have that scholarship and experience just sports in college, right? I think it's like such a life lesson. But speaking of life lessons, I want to talk about, you mentioned sort of like nonchalantly, like you're like, I knew I wanted to get involved in investing. And I'm curious like where that came from, because like how did you know that was good, or how did you know that was the right thing to do? Like was it something about your childhood upbringing? Like what gave you the idea that I need to not only make money, but I need to invest this money for my future? And here you are 10 years later, financially free. Like, talk to us about that.
Yeah, so there are two things that motivated me to invest. The first one was genuine fear. My family was pretty unstable. My father was married 6 times. My mother was married 3 times. There was just a lot happening in my family at that time, and I felt very alone. And I for sure knew that at that time I was going to be the only person to guarantee my financial independence and my security and safety. So I think any belief that someone was coming to save me was non-existent. So I think that fear was a big part of it. I think some of it was a healthy state of panic for sure, that forced me to probably Google, what should I do with my money? The other part of it I do have to give credit for is what elevated my investing was while I was working on the cruise ship. I met a guy who ended up becoming my boyfriend for a couple of years, a great guy. And he handed me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And while now in hindsight, I have mixed feelings about that book. I think it has its pros and cons, but generally speaking, the number one lesson I learned from that is put your money in things that makes you more money. And so really, I think back to how powerful that was. I kind of knew I wanted to do something smart with my money, but reading that, it just became so clear, like, oh, rather than spending my money on things, I'm going to spend my money on things that make more money. And that was my takeaway. So very grateful to him and him passing off that book to me. And then we eventually both invested in real estate around the same time in the same area a few years later. And so really, honestly, just, it's incredible how one conversation or one thought or one idea can really like change the course of your life.
Yeah, and it's cool to recognize that came from somebody that you were dating too. And it's like, I think, I don't even know if I've talked to you about this, but I've had this scenario with my ex-girlfriend where I kind of taught her how to get out of debt and invest. And we broke up and went our separate ways and everything's like, it's all good. But I think of myself as like, wow, I'm really glad that if I could leave her with one thing, you know what I mean? And I hope she continued, but like she was in a bunch of debt, student loans. And, I kind of set her up with the student loan planner and like this, and just investing every month, and she made good money. And I think it gave her confidence to go do it. So it's cool that, like you never know what lessons you can take from the people that you meet in your life, regardless if that you're going to stay with those people or not. So very, very cool. I appreciate you sharing that. And Ryan, do you have something?
Yeah, I do. So I just want to make it known here before we get too deep in this. You're 36 and you're a millionaire and you're financially independent. Like that's a very big feat for anyone. And to be such a young age, like you've clearly made a lot of successful moves. And then, as you mentioned, you've kind of made some not successful moves. And we are guilty of the same. I think anyone that's seen success, it's just hitting fear, overcoming it, and navigating through obstacles. So I want you to take us through, if you can, give us like a pie chart of your portfolio. It doesn't have to be exactly what you're invested in, but like, where are you heavily invested in stocks? Do you have some real estate? Like, give us an idea of your portfolio, then we'll kind of pick everything apart and go down the road.
Yeah, sounds great. So I would categorize myself as somebody that's very risk aware. While I love investing and I love the power of investing, I am constantly trying to find ways to diversify my portfolio and not go all in on one thing. I'm also somebody that really believes there's so many different ways to invest depending on your lifestyle. So my portfolio really reflects that. So I have, I guess if you wanted to divide it from a high level, you could say it's roughly about half and half in the stock market and real estate investing. I also have some art, commodities, crypto, a small amount angel investing. But even within those categories, it's very diversified. So when it comes to real estate, I have a single family, multifamily, syndications, of course, and then I also, on the stock market investing side, invest in different types of retirement accounts, different types of funds. So I really do try as much as I can to diversify. And I'm not someone that believes, there's one right way, one way is better than the other. I think depending on your stage of life and your resources, there's always a way to invest. Which one is going to be best for you kind of depends on where you're at. But yeah, I'm pretty spread out in terms of what I'm invested in.
Cool. I'm wondering the order that you went about that. Like, you mentioned you were going to start investing. I'm curious, the first couple moves you make in the order that you decided. Did you buy the real estate first? Did you start investing in the market, stock market first? And like, maybe what was your strategy as you got started?
So in true healthy state of panic fashion, I started both at the same time because I was really wary of both. So I invested in my first real estate property, a small single family in Tampa, Florida, around the same time that I started more intentionally investing in the stock market, investing in a Roth IRA and a brokerage, and really trying to understand the market. And so I did those things almost exactly at the same time, and also learned a lot from the way I started both of those things very early on. So I think my success, and I'm now very grateful for this, and my ability to build wealth and have this $1 million portfolio is because I made all the mistakes really early, all at the same time, pretty much. So that's how I was able to course correct.
Let's talk about some of the mistakes. I mean, maybe number one is doing everything at the same time, but like, what should people not do?
So, I think my biggest mistake, just generally speaking, was not getting enough of an education, like not filling some knowledge gaps before I dove in. So I think part of me felt like I wasn't capable of learning a lot, and that, I had some limiting beliefs as far as my ability to be able to invest. I didn't know if I was smart enough to invest in the stock market myself. So I hired a financial advisor and gave them all my money and just sort of said, make it be more. And that was a huge mistake. They charged me a 1% fee plus another fee for using the platform, plus the funds I was invested in had super high fees. They also sold me a garbage financial product, an annuity that was better suited for somebody in their 50s. And at this point, I'm in my mid 20s. So, that was totally based on a lack of knowledge, lack of like Googling, what are my investing options? Like, what are, even if you Google that right now, what are my options as far as getting started? You're going to find more than just a financial advisor that charges you 1%, which in my opinion is a ripoff. And I'm happy to dive into my feelings on that. And then at the same time, when I invested in the real estate property, the single family, I just didn't really understand the math. I really didn't understand everything that could go wrong. I didn't understand how expensive things were to fix. None of it's rocket science. If I had talked to one person that had ever had a property that didn't go well, this would have been avoidable. Like one conversation with somebody that had maybe had a couple different investments that could say, hey, here are some major expenses that you want to understand or make sure. Here's some pieces of buying a property that could cost you money and things you want to really like look into and understand. Right now, there are basic investing calculators that could help you do this. If I had just done that, I could have avoided a lot of mistakes. So all of my mistakes just came down to a lack of knowledge. And thankfully, because I am risk aware, that was a very small investment. Like that house I bought, this is so crazy. This is 2013. I bought it for $84,000. It was a 3-bed, 2-bath in like a semi-decent area in Tampa. So, thankfully I made a mistake. 20% down was like $16,000. It wasn't like a big mistake. So I also benefited from making, at least when it came to the real estate side, I had a lot of extra cash knowing that something was going to go wrong. And then literally everything went wrong. So I went through all that cash.
How did you choose Tampa, Florida? You're a Northeastern gal. So how did that come to be?
Literally Google, like top 10 places to invest. Me and my boyfriend flew down there. I bought a single family in Tampa, totally not running the numbers that I should have. And he bought a multifamily in Daytona, also not running the numbers that he should have. So truly, it was a Google.
What is the status of that property today? Like, did you sell it? Did you what happened to it? I'm just curious because it leads me into my next question.
Sure. So thankfully it is, I still own it actually.
Yes, that was what I was hoping.
There we go.
I do. So I ended up, now that property, I could probably sell it for around $340. I refinanced it and was able to buy another property. So it totally ended up working out. It was absolutely the right lesson learned on a smaller property. So I think that is a good lesson when people ask me, if when they want to get started. I do think that, finding something that's reasonable, maybe like a little bit smaller is a good idea, because I was able to learn all the things and then roll it into something much bigger. So yeah, that ended up working. Thankfully, the appreciation in the last decade in Tampa has been absolutely insane. So it all worked out.
I love Tampa, but here's the point that I wanted to make is that there's a lesson here. There's many lessons, but the one that I'm thinking of is action is better than no action, regardless of the outcome. The fact that you said, I didn't know what I was doing, but I took the action, and you're always going to win that way with that mentality. Like, I'm going to figure this out later. I'm going to make the action. I'm going to force it. And as long as I can survive it, I'm either going to have a lesson or a win. And it sounds like you had both, actually. So I just think that's kudos to you for like there's the biggest issue that people have is the fear to get started. And you didn't really have that. So maybe you did, you just pushed through it. But the point is that,
yeah.
I just think it's great that you have that lesson and it worked out for you.
Yeah, 100. I couldn't agree more. I think that's a great takeaway, Corey. And that is something I'm telling people all the time when it comes to investing, whether you're investing in real estate or the stock market. Taking action, whether that's, buying a program or starting research or whatever it is, that is the most important part, and you'll figure it out as you go. And thankfully, that was a long time ago. There weren't the resources that there are now. Now there's plenty of ways to learn how to invest. There's the incredible amount of information and calculators. It doesn't take that much effort to get some really good basic information. So, it absolutely, taking action is 100% super important. Even if you mess up, the lessons that I learned helped me make over $1 million, right? Like those smaller mistakes back then. So yeah,
people think about, there's another version of Tess that didn't go down to Tampa, didn't buy the property, and probably has $400,000 less of net worth or something like that, like hypothetically. And I just think of that as the analysis paralysis. There's a lot of people, whether it comes to investing, stock market, or real estate, they run the numbers, they think something's right, and they're like, okay, this sounds good, eventually I'll do it. But they don't have the person like overlooking their shoulder to say, hey, like, are you gonna make an offer on this? Or, hey, did you open up your brokerage account yet? And there's just, and then 5 years goes by in a blink. And I say that like tongue in cheek, but really time flies. And you could be like, whoa, I just never did it. Like, I just got consumed by my life again. And I see so many people, at least in our network, that have done that, and network as in like not our financial independence community, but like people in our lives, like in our regular daily lives, are like, oh, it's crazy. You guys have all this real estate. You have all these stocks. You're like, I'm going to do it one day. I just like, I'm saving up. I got to get a little bit more in my savings account. I'm like, dude, that ain't it. Like, do you want to have a conversation? Like, we have plenty of people and resources we can point you to. And so my point is, I think you guys kind of put a bow on it, but action beats inaction, 10 times out of 10. And you can literally make yourself 400 grand by making mistakes, and going through the motion, going through the fire. We had, you probably know all this, but we've had deals gone sour. We've had bad partnerships. We've had a property burned down, like so many things, right? But we're better for it. And we're still standing here. And now we know what not to do again. And I think I wouldn't really trade them, to be honest, because if everything was perfect, there'd be no game to it, and you'd just be like, okay, like what do I do now? So, it's hard to say in the moment, but
I have a follow-up question to this, Tess. So you've seen the mistakes, you've seen the growth, you're in a great position in life. I'm curious, when you make money now, and I'm sure you coach people on this in their specific scenario, right? Like so I'm asking your specific scenario, and you don't have to give me all the detail, but I'm curious, when you make money, what are your allocations? Like, where do you put it now? It doesn't have to be the exact stock or but I'm very curious on, like, as money comes in, your thought process behind how you're deploying it.
Yeah, so I'm an opportunist. So I don't create long-term plans anymore. And I don't need to. So now, where I'm at in life, I've worked very hard and I'm very grateful to be here. And now I want to make sure that I'm obviously preserving what I have and being really selective with what I do next. And so everything's intentional to some degree. So I still want to diversify as much as possible. So I will still look for newer opportunities or slightly different opportunities, whether if it's real estate, maybe it's a different geography or a different type of real estate investment. There are some things I will always do consistently. Like I will always dollar cost average, AKA like automate a specific amount into the stock market every single month. Like I will always do that just because candidly, it makes me feel better and in control, and it's automated progress. Even if I don't do anything else that year, I'm still getting my money to work for me. So that's one thing I'll always do. But I do, I will hold money in cash waiting for a potential real estate opportunity. And I don't rush into anything anymore. I don't feel like I have, a need to get a unit per year. I think I used to put the pressure on myself. And honestly, my goal, I have 5 units right now, plus some syndications. And my goal was, 10 units by 35 or something like that. I can't remember. And I put so much pressure on myself to buy a unit every single year or a couple or whatever. And I just don't do that anymore because I realize the power of a couple investments is incredible. And, I think you hear a lot of, when you start to get into real estate investing and you listen to investors, you hear a lot of really famous investors and they have like 300 units and 400 units. And, that's a lot. And what I will say is a couple units can be absolutely life-changing. So now I'm at a place where I want to continue to build wealth, but do it in a way that's, minimal stress, frankly. Like if an investment doesn't feel right to me and I'm not excited about it, I'll pass on it, even if the numbers work.
So you mentioned automated progress, and I love the term. And the three of us do the same thing. Every month we invest, we dollar cost average into the stock market, ETFs, and we can talk about what each person does. But I've recently upped it, and each month, so I'm doing more than I used to as more money comes in. I'm trying to get the brokerage to a certain amount. But when you said automated progress, I thought about the exact state of the stock market right now, today, right? Today actually was up. But the last 4 days, I think it's lost like 8% in like the last week. I'm curious about your thought process and what maybe some advice for people, because we mentioned it's automated progress, and it is. It's automated progress if you zoom out, but not if you're looking at it finitely. Like I check it twice a day, like a psychopath. But I know that I'm not going to make any changes. I'm just very curious, like I have a plan. So I'm curious about your thoughts on like what, if people are like, see, this is stupid, Tess. Why would I invest in the stock market? Look what happened. I just invested $1,000 and it literally went to zero. So what do you say to those people who have those questions or doubts?
Yeah. So I would say that one of the most powerful and simple ways to invest is with a long-term perspective, right? And that goes for real estate or stock market investing. I've never done short-term real estate investing where I bought something, sold it the next year, flips or anything like that. And that's because I know my risk tolerance, but it's also because I'm educated in how the markets work and how the real estate market has worked historically and the stock market has worked historically. And this is where I love to say, like, education will kill your fears. Like, the more you start to get educated and you understand how these things are cyclical, how the economy is cyclical, how the stock market is cyclical, even the real estate market to some degree, when you decide that you're investing for a long period of time, and when I say long, 5 plus 10, 15 years or longer, the risk diminishes by tenfold, right? So for example, if you're investing in the stock market, first of all, it's important to zoom out. So yes, the market, went down. I think it's back up, like you said, a percent or so today. But let's say it goes down 8% in the last few days. Well, year to date, the market is still up 11-ish%. Last year, the market was up 24%. Over the last 5 years, it's up roughly 80%. And when I say it's up, what I'm saying is the S&P 500, which is the top 500 largest US stocks as a group, which is used as a benchmark to measure the overall performance of the stock market. So that's what we're talking about here. So over the last 5 years, if you just invested in stocks that had broad market exposure, so, a big handful of stocks that were representative of the market, you would have gotten an 80% return on your investment over the last 5 years. So that's what I love to educate people on, is that the type of investing that I do is with a long-term mindset. And once you start to understand the potential of your, whether it's a real estate investment or a stock market investment over 5-10 years, that's when it gets exciting. Now, that's not a get rich quick scheme. Like, I will straight up tell you, and I have this even on my website, like, if you are looking for a get rich quick scheme, I am not your person. Like, I will not help you make $1 million by next year. But what I can do is help you build a considerable amount of wealth in a 5 to 10 year period. Like, a few years can completely change your life. So, when it comes to the commentary on the stock market, and this is what I'm telling everyone, is that, yeah, it doesn't look super great today, but if you've been investing over the last 5 years, you're really happy. You're very happy with what's happening. So the long-term mindset is everything.
Yeah, there's market corrections, every so often too. And I think you said it right. Like, there's no true get rich quick scheme. I think anything that is kind of BS, but maybe I'm wrong, but we have the same mindset of you as like 5-10 year horizon. You can really change your life and you can reach financial independence in that time. And I think the number one thing to highlight here is just to get started, because time flies and you're going to get consistently better over time. But once you start dabbling, you get more curious, and then you start learning more and self-educating, then surrounding yourself with the people that know what they're doing or have another, they have a lane that they specialize in, and you can talk to them about it. And then there's communities out there, and you just start exploring more. But if you don't start, you just you're in this vortex where you like think about it sometimes, then you forget, then you go on to your life. And for us, the dollar cost averaging and setting it automatic, it's second nature now. Like, I don't even think about it. I just know at the end of every month, I'm going to have a little bit more than less because it's going into the market. And I don't mind if there's a correction. As you mentioned, it's up 80% over that time horizon. We're in a good spot. And then as time goes by, just to mention this, is like, then you can start getting more creative with your investments, right? Like, you, over time, after having gone through the stock market, then you get your place in Tampa, and then you have a little bit of cash based on the refinance. Like, you can start dabbling. You mentioned your portfolio, you got some syndications, you got 5 units, you're also in stocks, and then you have some art. Like, there's cool things that you can explore if you have some dough on the side, or in investments, and you can pull out, and there's ways to do it. But there's one thing I want to bring up that you mentioned too, and sorry for this being long-winded, but you mentioned only having 5 units, and like, only, I said in air quotes, because there, some people have 200-300 units. More money, more problems. Like, I think truly having a small and mighty portfolio, I think Coach Carson kind of coined that, is one of the best things you can do, right? If you have 5 to 10 units yourself, like 10 people, some people are like, dude, you have 10 properties or 10, like, that's insane. I can't even get one today, right? Because they don't have the right education and people looking out for them and how to like build that. But I'm saying this, that's an incredible life you can set up for yourself. And you don't need to get crazy, right? Like, maybe some people love their W-2 job. Maybe they want to go pursue other things, but just having the stability and like the diversification there, to have stocks in one side, real estate in another, and then play the game within each, that's powerful stuff. So I just wanted to mention that, because I think people gloss over that all the time, and they go number count. You're like, hey, by this amount of time, I need to have this amount of units. And we did the same exact thing. but it's not, you don't need to put that pressure on yourself. I think it's good for accountability to say, here's a goal that I want to get to, but instead of the number count, change it to the cash flow, or change it to like, I'm buying in an emerging market. I know this is going to go up X%, in the next couple of years. You guys both picked Tampa, which is great. So just some food for thought for people, because when you start hearing real estate and then you go on Instagram and you see all these people and they put in their bio and they have like 5,000 units and you're like, okay, man, like that's not attainable for me. Or maybe it's they have one apartment complex and they're invested in a syndication and they're claiming that they have 5,000 units. Like it's not always sunshine and rainbows. You know what I mean? So
yeah. I mean, I love that. I also think too that we have a tendency to want to identify in a certain way, and investing in real estate doesn't mean that you have to be a real estate investor and that is your job and your only identity and the only thing you do. Like, I would consider myself a very casual investor. Like, I bought 4 different properties over a 10-year period. I still have 3 of those. And, so that's like every 3 years I made a move. I wasn't like actively trying to buy properties all the time. I was working full time. I was doing other things with my life and traveling and having a great time. So I love that you said that, because I do think there is a misconception that, to get into these things, it's something that can take over your life. And while it's not, investing in real estate is certainly not passive. It's certainly in the beginning, right? When you're learning and you're, getting your first property. But if you're interested at all, it's so important to take action and try one, right? Maybe, one good investment is still life-changing, even if you just house hacked a 2-family, right? And you get your mortgage partially covered. That is life-changing, right? You are saving potentially like $1,000 or whatever it is on your living expenses, which is our biggest expense other than taxes, really, as people. So I couldn't agree more. It doesn't have to be the biggest investment or the most investment to be incredibly powerful and truly life-changing.
That's the reason, Tess, that we started our coaching program, teaching people how to buy their first, because we know how impactful it was for us to buy our first. And it truly did change the trajectory of our life, because 1 turned to 2 and 2 turned to 4 and 4 turned to 8. And but it all starts with that first one. And I love what Rye mentioned about, like, don't count the doors, count the cash flow. Like, we have a short-term rental that brings in $1,500 a month in cash flow. It could take 7 units in long-term to get to that point. You know what I mean? So I would rather say that we have the cash flow versus the unit count. But we mentioned our program a little bit here. I want to talk about yours and Finance Bro Free Investing Education for Millennial Women. Tess, are we finance bros? I just want to.
No.
Okay. All right. Okay.
No,
I don't know if we
not
are.
Even
I don't know.
Close. Okay. Here's my definition of a finance bro. A finance bro is the exact opposite of you guys, because a finance bro is somebody that is gatekeeping and that is talking down to the regular people like us, right? That, we didn't grow up investors. We didn't know about money. Like, we learned by trial and error, right? And we didn't have anything handed to us. We just learned. So finance bros are, I think, the best example I can think of, and I have so many clients and students like this, are people that have reached out to somebody in the financial industry, and when they ask questions, the answers they get are, oh, that's too complicated for you to understand. Anyone that is trying to that is not intentionally educating and empowering other people to understand so that they can truly build their wealth, that's a finance bro to me. Because what I will tell you is that, as somebody that my number one goal is to create judgment-free, accessible education. So every time I say a definition, I always tell my students, if I say a jargony word and I don't explain it immediately, call me out, because I don't want any of this conversation to be unclear. So that's what I say when I say finance bro. It's more of a general term for an industry that has historically kept information private and gatekept and intentionally made investing confusing. Thankfully, real estate investing has less of that issue, I think, to some degree. Like, there's wonderful people like you guys and other creators that are really doing their best to make real estate education accessible to anyone just getting started, because it really is, right? Yes, of course it takes work to get to your first one, but it really is accessible. With the stock market, there's so much deep, steeped institutional garbage that is gatekeeping the average person from really taking control of their money and really understanding what's going on, and an active effort to confuse people. And so that's what I mean when I say it. So no, you guys are the good guys.
No, I was hoping you'd say that, and I kind of said it tongue in cheek but I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think this is such a powerful and important conversation because there are people that, and this is why I think your program, like you teaching this people, it's paramount. And there's people out there that, and I've had conversations with friends where they're like, my boyfriend lost his job and I don't know his financial situation, or my fiance, my husband, whatever. Like it goes that deep, 20 years. I don't know the finances of the situation. It's like this taboo thing that I think people are, I'm not sure why, I'm not sure where it's deep rooted from, but people are afraid to have the conversation. Like, I don't even want to talk about it. That's not something we talk about. It's like, well, if you're ignoring the fact that money runs the world, you don't have to make it your life, and you shouldn't make it your life because the greed is terrible. But understanding it, how it works, will change completely change your outlook 100%. Because we know this now. We've met a lot of people who are way wealthier than us. There's a lot of people who think wealthy people are all evil. It's like, that's not true. That's not true. You are considered wealthy, Tess, and people that are poor or somebody that doesn't have money might think a certain way about you based on what they hear in the media. And I just want money to become less of like this unspoken thing. And I think you're doing that with your program. And I think it's powerful. So yeah. I mean, if you want to talk, I mean, go ahead, Rye. I was going to ask her more about it.
A couple things. Glad we're not Brad and Chad over here interviewing each other, so that's good. Other thing is, like, we've seen just like the hidden depths of the internet recently. Like when you have posts that blow up, it's usually people going back and forth at each other, which is so crazy. Like we had one that it's like got like 700,000 views, and it kept going up. Like, how the hell does this keep going? Because people were just talking trash to each other, and it was a lot of people that know nothing. They just want to pick a fight, and they go back and forth. So it's crazy, and I think you realize that people think that real estate investors or investors, like the word, right, is the big bad wolf, and it's bad, and like the rich, they dub people as rich people, and that they don't do anything for the poor, or like what they dub as the poor. And really, when you start getting into these rooms with people that make buku bucks, at least we found in the real estate sector, so many of these people are philanthropic and giving back so much, and have built out like foundations and grants for colleges and things. And you're like, wow, like they don't get it. Like people, and you're not going to go, it's hard to defend in comments, right? And it's like, it's just a keyboard warrior. But I just want to bring that out there. Like this, I think all of us in this room are trying to make it more accessible for people and make it less stigma around, and just like, let's have the conversation. Like nobody growing up, for me, it was like, we didn't really talk about money. Like, my dad was an entrepreneur, and it provided a great life for us. So I can't say anything, but it was just like, we never really like sat down and talked about money. It was like, that was his thing, right? Like he figured it out, and we were just like, okay. Then when I had to like research myself. When I got into the real world, I'm like, okay. And I would ask him some questions, and luckily he was entrepreneurial, and that kind of really helped spark things for me. And we only having me approach him about it and really like beg and like pick through it. Then we started talking about it. But I think in certain families, I bring that up because a lot of people become a product of their environment when they grow up, and you attribute money to how your parents looked at it, or what your household looked at it. And I think that is kind of leans people a certain way, or not. Like some people take that with a chip on their shoulder. Like, I know nothing about money, I'm going to go figure it out. Other people are like, nope, I hate money. The world runs around money. I'm just focused on my job, and everyone's out to get me. So I think it's just healthy conversation to talk about, and I like talking about it because I feel like we sometimes feel like everyone talks about money the way we do, because we do this every day, and we're in our little communities on Instagram and YouTube and in the podcast. But when you start getting into the real world, like people just, they don't talk about it. And when you're like talking money all the time, like, dude, why are you always talking about money? I'm like, whoa, like I forgot I'm like in this setting. I'm not in my little bubble anymore. So I try not to be that guy that like is annoying about it, but I'm like, man, like I could really help this person, or I don't know. Maybe you feel the same way.
No, I mean, what we're talking, we talk about money, right? But money is just a tool. It can be used for good or evil, right? And when I talk to people about money, and people say things like, oh, I feel bad being greedy, or money doesn't buy happiness. It's like, okay, fine. But like, here's a list of things that money does buy, especially for women that typically don't feel like they have options, right? Because a lot of women are in situations that aren't necessarily great. And I will tell you straight up that I work with a lot of women in transition or leaving not so great relationships. And part of the reason they're trying to get their finances together is so that they feel confident to do that. And so when I talk about money and people start to step back a little bit or they're a little bit nervous, like, let's call it what it is. It's a tool that helps you buy things like security, safety, freedom, independence, impact, time, like more time with your friends and family, right? Like that's what money can do. I think we think about money and people think about money and how money is spent, not what it can be used for as the amazing tool that it is. So that's the first thing that I always bring up when people start to like pull back a little bit when it comes to money. And then the second thing that I hear all the time is people say, oh, I'm like bad at money. Like it's something you either are born being good at or you're not good at. And understanding money and investing is just like anything else. It's a skill, right? And so if you, for example, never rode a bike, you never had a bike, no one ever taught you how to ride a bike, you never Googled a YouTube video on biking 101, you wouldn't know how to do that, right? And so the belief that, you're just bad at money or you're a bad investor, anything like that is just simply a lack of knowledge. And of course, like probably some financial trauma that many of us had growing up or weird relationships with money, which many of us do depending on how we grow up, like you said, Ryan. But I think it's really important to think about, if you're listening to this and anything is coming up for you, like how do you feel about money? Because if you are feeling any of that, that is going to prevent you, to bring this full circle, from taking action, right? Like that's going to prevent you from getting the property or investing in the stock market. And so in order to take action, you have to level set with yourself and understand, is there something else holding me back here? Is it a limiting belief that I'm bad at money? Is it that I don't feel like I deserve to have money? Those are real things and real beliefs that people have. And so breaking that apart and doing a little bit of like, not to get too woo here, but like journaling with yourself about like, is there a reason you haven't taken action yet? And is that something that's actually true? And then the last thing I just want to point out is, we think about like investors, right? You think about, rich people, investors, whatever with that label. If you're listening to this and you have a 401k or a Roth IRA, you're an investor. Like your money has exposure to the stock market right now. And it's up to you to make sure that the money that you worked really hard for is working hard for you. So we all really are investors. I doubt there's many people listening to this that don't have something like that. So, acknowledging that you're an investor and then trying to figure out what is the thing that's holding you back. If you haven't taken action, that's your next step after listening to this.
Tess, I want to bring up a topic that's really popular on social media. There's this group of people, these entrepreneurs that make it look like it's the greatest thing ever and that you should burn the boats and go all in and become an entrepreneur. And while that does work for some people and could work for maybe more people that aren't doing it, right? It's very circumstantial. I'm curious about your transition from working your W-2 job to becoming a full-time entrepreneur, what that was like, how that felt, and like when you decided to take the action, when you knew it was right, or you didn't and you just fell into it. Like, how did that work out?
Yeah, I love that we're talking about this because I also see that binary narrative where it's like you either work your W-2 or you're an entrepreneur and you quit your job and, like you said, burn the boats, right? And so I'm a firm believer that there is a middle ground here. One, I will say right off the back that I don't think having a W-2 is a bad way to build wealth. I'm a full-time entrepreneur. It is a lot of work. It is not, I am not hanging out by the pool, getting Instagram followers and free products sent to my house. Like that is not my day-to-day reality, right? So I will say there are both ways to build wealth. Pros and cons for each. My specific journey was I've been working full-time now for myself for about a year, but I worked in corporate for a long time before that. And I've had my business for over 3 years. And so I did spend time in my W-2 while working on my business. And I am so glad that I did that for a few reasons. One, around that time, I bought a third rental property that was a really good investment. So that was great because it gave me more confidence to leave my W-2 because I had another stream of income. So another plug for real estate investing as a way to, give you some padding if you are looking to transition into into your own business. But when I left, I had already been working on my business for 2 years. And I think it's a fabulous thing to work full time and work on your business. It is a ton of work. It's exhausting for sure, right? Like you're burning the candle at both ends. But because you have limited time, it sort of forces you, it's a forcing function to pick the things that you really need to do to move the needle forward. And if you think about it that way, can you build this business part-time by focusing on the things that are moving the needle, watching the data, right? If you're creating a business after hours, after your W-2, and you're spending 5 hours a week on social media and it's not moving your business forward, then you're going to need to pivot, right? And so that was my takeaway. I think I got much further in my business because I had a job, because I had less time. And it forced me to prioritize the right things to actually create a revenue generating business. And then by the time I left, I certainly didn't have everything figured out. I still don't have everything figured out, but I understood how I was going to make money and what that cash flow was going to look like. And also taking that pressure off gives me a little bit more latitude to do the things I want in my business. Whereas I think if you jump ship too early, you end up doing whatever it takes to make money. And that might not be a scalable business that you want. And I see that a lot. I see people get into, really hands-on, some deep, like one-on-one coaching stuff where that's like all they're doing. And it's not scalable. They're making money that way, but it's not necessarily something that they're going to be able to sustain because they're, on coaching calls all day or whatever. So that's just one example. So I do think that there's a way to do both. I think there's such a great opportunity while you're working to get educated, like take business courses and learn different like marketing skills that are going to help you build your business and use your job to fund those. So I couldn't be more of a fan of, gradually figuring it out. And then of course, at some point, like the theme of this podcast really is like, you do have to take action and, figuring out what that pivot point is for you and where you're comfortable. But it's really hard to do that unless you have some data and understand what your business could actually produce. And so I think having a testing ground while you have a W-2 is a great way to get started.
I would say the biggest impact that it's having on us is surrounding ourselves with people who have done the thing that we want to do, and getting in rooms with those people, because it expands your mindset. And and like Ryan and I have said this before, like if we talk to the people that we work with in our W-2 jobs all day long, the mindset is going to be limited to just that. Great people, amazing people, do their own things, right? But like if that's where we live and our mind lives, then how would we be inspired to leave and inspired to do something bigger? But it's all circumstantial, as I said. Like it just depends on your scenario. And I think that to me, it feels like you kind of almost know, like in the back of your head, when the time might be right. Maybe I'm wrong, but
I did. No, I think that's right. Like I kind of did. It all sort of fell into place at a certain point. So I think you'll know. Or thankfully, or the other thing that happened to me is you've built a good network of fellow entrepreneurs, and one of them will directly tell you that it's time for you to leave your W-2 because you're doing pretty well, which is what happened to me. So another reason for connecting yourself with other people in the business, because they can help you when you do decide to cut off your W-2. Having that network is going to be so powerful, not just for your business growth, but also your confidence to make big moves.
And to be able to lean on. I think we've had, truthfully, not that everyone knows our financial situation on the back end, but like we've had a lot of people on the show. They're like, dudes, what are you doing? Like, you're ready. Just go. Like, just start it. And there's that fear, right? Like we talk the golden handcuffs, right? You have their benefits and health insurance and high salaries, and you've been able to maintain both. But just think about when you have all the time to dedicate to the business. But then you're like, well, is this business, to your point, scalable? Is it something I actually am going to like doing? Like you get into it, you might be 6 months in, you'd be like, this is okay. But I'd much rather have had the job where I kind of knew what I was doing every day and like could not coast, but you predictable, and you could kind of figure out so I think it's just an interesting topic of conversation, because a lot of times people think, hey, burn the boat right away and just go full time and you'll figure it out. And it's not the case. There's tons of benefits to keeping your W-2, at least while you try to build things and test things, and you're bankable, you can get more loans. And I guess my last question for you on this is, did you have a predictable amount of income that you wanted before leaving your W-2, or like a net worth amount? Or cash flow coming in where you're like saying, not just the feeling of leaving, like you knew it was ready, but like, on paper, it was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm done?
Yeah. So for me, the reason I felt confident to leave was because I was house hacking. So I had a few rentals, but at my time, one of them was a house hack. So as soon as I started to make any consistent money in my business, that I thought the net worth thing would help. It didn't, and that's a scarcity mindset thing, that I'll probably be working on, because I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I still had a fear around money, so I'm still trying to wrap my head around that, to be honest. But for me, it wasn't net worth, it was cash flow, right? Making sure I could cover my expenses and not dip into any of the investments that I'd worked so hard to create. And so having that house hack at the time was huge. I've since rented it out, and now I'm actually renting, but that property covers pretty much my rent of my new place. So that was really what was important for me, is making sure that I could cover a big chunk of my expenses to take the stress off for me. So I did really use real estate investing as a vehicle to leave.
Makes sense. And that house hacking is so important too, to be able to like cut your expenses, even if you just cut it in half, like to have you keep a fixed amount of expenses, and then you can take the plunge a lot easier. As we wind down the show, I want to ask a question about, what advice, Tess, would you give if you had to go back and talk to your 18-year-old self? Like, and you had, and I always say, like, my 18-year-old self wouldn't listen to me probably, but maybe your 18-year-old self would listen to you. What advice would you give her, and why?
The main piece of advice I would give her is that you are capable of learning anything. And there is no such thing as a lack of resources, just a lack of resourcefulness. I love that quote because, I can't remember which one of you said it earlier, but we talked about being curious. Once I started to realize that I was capable of investing, which, by the way, if you're listening to this, you are absolutely capable. It's a skill. It's something you can learn, right? Once I started to realize that I could start to grow my money with these other vehicles, it opened the door for me to become curious about other ways to build wealth, to eventually start my own business, and now to have a successful business that's cash flowing every month. If you asked me if I thought that was possible back then, I would have said, no way. But if you had told me to be curious and to make sure that I look for resources, right? To acknowledge that there are endless amounts of resources and good people that will help you, that might have been a game changer for me. So I think that understanding that it's really possible to learn anything in this information day and age, and frankly, that there's a lot of wonderful people like you guys that genuinely want to help other people succeed.
Cool. Well, Ryan, do you have anything else? I want to wind up.
That was a great answer. I was a curiosity guy, so that was me, by the way.
Yeah. It's, I mean, that drives the curiosity there, drives like the passion behind, like you might be curious about a couple of things and you're just too afraid to press the go button on it. And like, and you could have become the next whatever, like the next really great person at doing this. And I think feeding that curiosity and not losing it as you get into your 30s and 40s, like that's important, because you kind of like, you lose the curiosity and the imagination of what you could be when you were a kid. And no, I'm not going to play in the NBA. I'm 32. Like there's certain things that I probably shouldn't pursue, but like within the realm of like physical capability, like pursue the things that you have curiosity about, and you might spark something. And I think that to me, that should never stop. I don't care how old you are. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Tess, if people want to learn more about you, they want to, become one of your students, the network, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
So if you are interested in learning about beginner investing, the best place for you to go is moneyconfidentcoach.com/investing. And that will give you access to a free beginner investing workshop. It is awesome. It's jam-packed with value. It's not just like frou-frou, rah-rah crap. It's really actually valuable. So that's moneyconfidentcoach.com/investing. And then if you want to connect with me, www.wealthwithtess.com. I have tons of information and resources along with a way to connect with me directly there as well.
Love it. Thanks so much for coming on. As we said before we started, we thought we had you on because we've had probably 8 to 10 Zoom calls talking about deals, just talking about business, and you've been somebody that's helped us and get our business off the ground. So we really appreciate it, and we're happy to just to network. And thanks for coming on today. We appreciate your time.
Likewise, I've learned so much from you, and I so appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Wealth Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube at Wealth Juice Official, where we post daily tips, tricks, and document our own journey towards financial freedom.